we are live. Okay, let's call to order this meeting of the City of Salem Bond Oversight Committee for July 24th, 2025. And we'll roll call. I'm here, Julie Hoyt.
Counselor Nishioka is here.
Urban M. Brown.
Bob Courtwright.
That's room for this. So like here, he's not here.
Yes, he's out.
So then we should move on to staff.
Josh Nicholson, Chief Financial Officer.
Brian Mark, Public Works Director.
Family, Engineering Program Manager.
Rick Barnes, Assistant City Engineer.
Krishna Namburi, Interim City Manager.
Aaron Kimsey, Assistant City Engineer.
And Alan Dan, City Engineer.
And that's it. Awesome. Okay, I missed the welcome. Welcome, everyone. I need a motion for approval of the June 26, 2025 meeting minutes.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Aye. Nice. On to action items. Oh, if we don't have anybody here for public comment.
Nobody signed up.
Great. On to action items, the use of the fiscal year 2024 pavement R&R savings. Alan, you have good news?
Good news and other news. Kelly's gonna
Yes, I
run the
am.
PowerPoint for me. Thank you, Kelly.
You are welcome. Beginning.
So we're here to talk about the bridge strengthening project that's under construction right now. I'll give you all kind of an update of where we are in construction. We are projecting to run over budget with this project, and so we'll give a recommendation on how we would like to address that. But I thought it'd be good to start with some background. You can go ahead and advance it there. Perfect. So as a reminder, we have 4 bridges included with this project. They all have a load rating on them, which means heavy trucks can't use them right now. So the primary goal of the project is to add reinforcement to these 4 bridges to remove that load rating. And 3 of them are on Mill Creek, 1 on Mission over Pringle Creek. Our work has started on, we started at the Liberty Street Bridge over Mill Creek, and it has started to progress to some of the other structures, but we're furthest along at Liberty Street. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Kelly. So this kind of gives you an example of, or an idea of the character of the work. What I want to point out is at the bottom of these pictures is essentially a temporary work platform that the contractor had to build to access the structures. You can see the grooves that are cut into the beam. So that's really the bulk of this work, is to make space in the existing concrete beams to add more rebar reinforcement. It gets epoxied in place, and then the slots get grouted back up to provide the strength that the bridge needs to remove the load rating. This, even though we're not technically in the water, this is all happening in the footprint of the creek areas that need permitting from DSL and Board of Engineers, and we have to perform this work during the in-water work period, which is June through October, essentially. So go ahead and go to the next slide, Kelly. As you might have guessed, we have encountered a few problems as we've gone through this. One of the biggest kind of cores of the issue is the field conditions that we're encountering with these structures is different from what the record drawings were showing us. And a legitimate question to ask would be, well, how come we didn't figure that out when we were designing the project? And it's really because until those work platforms were built, it's difficult to get up close with these structures and really see what we're dealing with. And I'll go into a little more detail there for you. So the issues that we're dealing with primarily are rebar, existing rebar in the bridge, not where the as-built, the record drawings said it was, and so we're having to make modifications to the new rebar that we're putting in to fit. So field fitting essentially going on to get the reinforcement that we need. And so that's caused some differences from what the contractor was expecting and what they're having to do. And then the other big issue is the condition of the concrete itself. is showing us that it needs some rehab, and I've got some pictures on the next slide that really illustrate that. You can kind of see here, they're kind of small, but this is after the contractor's been at the structure and cleaned off some of the concrete that was failing, but you get a sense of where we're losing section of those beams because the concrete had weathered at the outside. And you can see it clearly now, but it wasn't really very visible, especially when you couldn't get up to the structure before the project started. It was really when they got up there and started tapping on the beams, they realized that a lot of the concrete was failing. So it's superficial. When we do the work that we need to do to put the reinforcement in and then patch all this back up, it'll be good as new. But there is more rehab than we had anticipated with the original scope.
Not to be light, make light, but can we consult the Egyptians? If this looks like as old as some of their work,
It does have that kind of look to it, doesn't it? Kind of a great pyramid style.
right?
Go ahead and go to the next one, Kelly. So this kind of gives a summary of where we are with the construction budget. Low bid on the job was just under 1.3 million. That left us, that was within budget, that left us with a contingency of about 170,000. One of the, beyond an administrative correction, we had a change order right off the bat because the contractor recognized some of these issues. So we did a change order for all 4 bridges where they would bend the rebar in the field instead of having it prefabricated by the fabricator, so that they could sort of match conditions. So that's the first change order there. That covered all 4 bridges for just over 18,000. And then the next 2 are what we've had to do just for the Liberty Street structure. So the concrete rehabilitation includes some money for third-party testing. So we had additional concrete testing to do with that rehab work. And then the changes to the rebar for that specific to that structure to meet the conditions that we're encountering there. So essentially, if you take out the testing, it amounts to about $50,000 in added cost that we're seeing at that bridge. That cuts our contingency down to just over 90,000. We don't know for sure yet, but if you just kind of took this bridge as the typical example, if we needed 50,000 per bridge, that would take us over what we have left. So we don't know for sure. Maybe it'll be better, but we wanted to get with you all and talk about the possibility because, as I mentioned before, the in-water work period ends in October. And if we got to a place where we're out of money and needed to wait for a meeting to come talk to you all, that could impact us to getting the work done on time. So we wanted to be proactive and bring it to you now when we saw the issue potentially coming down the road at us. So the good news is, go ahead and go to the next slide, Kelly, is we have about 250,000 in savings from the 2024 Haven R&R project. That was the project down on Far South Commercial in the 1 block of Liberty Street near City Hall. So what we would propose to do is essentially access that savings to bridge the gap here should we need it. If you asked to pin me down on how much of that to ask for, I would probably ask for 75,000 just to give us a little bit of cushion even over and above that 50,000 per bridge. And that would keep us going. If it gets worse than that, obviously we'll come back and talk to you all about what else we're finding. But hopefully this gives us what we need to kind of deal with the issues, assuming they'll be similar to what we've found so far. Happy to take any questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have a couple questions. You say in water? I mean, it sounds like that means that there's no water there.
Correct. Yeah, we're not really working in the water, but it's in the footprint between the ordinary
Jurisdiction.
So it's in the jurisdiction of DSL and the Corps. So we have to get permits from them, and we can only
So
work in that
typically,
for those times.
from October till spring, is this area have water?
Not quite as high as that platform, but yeah, certainly the creeks get higher and these, it would be difficult to do this work in the winter for sure. And there's other issues with fish passage and that kind of thing. They will avoid impacts.
I'm also wondering about the testing or basically the water that may be there and if it contributes to the eroding of the concrete or if that was just airs they were built?
Yeah, I don't think it's due necessarily to the stream flow. It's more just due to the age of the structure and conditions over time. Not so much from erosion or anything.
And then I'm curious as to the testing of the concrete. Is that, and I know that oftentimes what they do is they take the same pour and then test it somewhere else, not test it at site. So that's the testing that you're talking about? And is there any impact on the support of the concrete if the rebar is being managed at the site versus reconstructed and brought in? Does that kind of decrease the ability of the rebar and the support that's gained?
I don't think the field bending really has any structural impact. It's just more work that the contractor has to do on site, more equipment that they need to bring in instead of having a prefab to be exactly what.
But that is a cost savings by doing it there versus having it done off-site.
No, it costs us more to do it on site than to have it done.
And the reason that's happening is because of the uniqueness of the situation.
Yeah, right. I think they originally recognized when they got out on the job and started looking at this, like, it would be a mistake to have all this stuff prefabbed and then it's not gonna work and then we can't do much with it. And so we're starting to, so it was good input from the contractor to us to say, hey, this might be a good move.
And then my last question was with the weight load increase that the bridges will be able to manage. Is that also anticipating even heavier vehicles on which going over it? Is it built in to have over the next 25 years or so?
Yeah, can you speak to what we're designing for?
There is a safety factor. I don't have the exact load rating that we're designing for in my head, so I apologize for that. But there's definitely a safety factor there. And one of the reasons these bridges became load rated is a change in the methodology of how the calculations are done. So I don't think it was because it was a change in the condition of the structure. It was a change in how the methodology of the design is. But
I mean, there was a recognizing that these were kind of in a way being structurally deficient, and they started analyzing it in ways. So we had to add the rebar to make sure that we were meeting the current codes and bringing it up to standards, essentially.
So I guess, again, the question is basically asking, bringing it up to standards, are there expectations that there might be changes for that, and will we still be in kind of a safe zone for a while, or you don't know?
I would say we're bringing it all up to what the rest of our bridges would have been, would be able to carry.
Oregon's already has a heavier load rating in most states.
Okay, that's a good thing to know.
Most states are 50,000. I mean, Oregon, you notice like semis on the roadway, Oregon allows much different configurations than a lot of other states. Most states, the kind of the max load is 80,000 pounds. Oregon allows up to 105.
Wow, I didn't know.
Oregon's a bit.
Councilor Brown.
Councilor Brown, go ahead.
Oh, you couldn't
Thanks.
hear?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Now, I could not hear the last thing. I don't know the person sitting to the left, the Public Works Director, but if he could repeat that.
I guess. So I was explaining that Oregon already has a higher kind of max load, if you will, than some of the other states.
For trucks,
For trucks.
big trucks.
And what does Oregon have? What's the max load?
Again, it's a bit, it's not a one answer fits all or easy answer because it depends on like the axles and the axle configurations, but normally at kind of the highest load rating in most states, 80,000 pounds, Oregon allows up to 5.
Okay. Okay. Well, my question were this. So what is the life of the rebar? Like when you make all the changes right now, is the lifespan 5 more years, 10 years for these bridges? What do you think?
The lifespan of the new rebar will outlast the life of the existing structure.
And is that just for this bridge or it will be all 4?
All 4.
All 4. And so just make sure I heard this clearly. So Mr. Engineer, what's the total amount that we're asking for?
The total amount that We would ask for 75,000.
And that's for all bridges or just the one?
That would cover all four.
All four? And who's the contractor?
Contract is HP Civil.
HP Civil?
State-
And they've done work for the city before many a times or no?
Yeah, they've done bridge work for us before, and yeah, they're out of state.
They're out of state?
State.
State.
Oh, got it. Had you said out of state, I would have been like, what? But thank you for
Should've
clarifying
said
that.
from state.
Thank you. Staten is good. And just one other question, and I think it's following Councilor Nishioka's comment. This is from June to October?
That's when the in-water work period is, yes.
Got it, because I think you said that this work would be extremely challenging if it's in the winter months.
Correct.
Got it. And you don't anticipate coming back for more funds, or do you think this is it?
We're hoping this is it.
Okay, and Mr. CFO, the money that comes out of this account, I'm assuming this has already, received your blessing and input?
Yeah, we've discussed it, and it's all in the same category of infrastructure. It's just moving it from one project that has savings to another project. And I think we'll see more of this as projects close. When there's savings, and we would probably push that in the unanticipated, available for other projects that go over. So I think you'll see more of this conversation over the next few years.
Okay, and from your place of expertise, do you think that we're going to exhaust the money that's in this fund?
I guarantee we're gonna use up all the funding for projects. It's just if we have a challenge on individual projects. So it's really hard to tell when you have a 10-year program. But for now, I feel like we're in a much better spot than we were a year and a half ago. And we'll just have to monitor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think just to build on the other questions, I'm curious if you've had a chance to look at the other three bridges more carefully in terms of the condition of the concrete, and discovered this as you went. And maybe that's related to the age of this bridge compared to the others. I don't know if you have any insights.
Yeah, so Aaron can jump in here, but part of the way the contract was structured was for them not to try to do all four bridges at once, because we didn't want them to open everything up and then get overextended and not get done on time. I think because of what we found, we've allowed them to move out a little bit, and so they're starting to do that investigation. I don't know if they have any findings.
I haven't heard of anything recently, but they have started on the Mission Street Bridge and also the 15th Street Bridge. And I think they're actually getting close to being done 15th, the least amount of rebar being added to it. I haven't heard of anything crazy under that one. I think we have a chance of finding some stuff under 17th and Mission are kind of the two biggest ones with the most amount of work. That's like Alan said, that's why we have to kind of jump ahead and try to get under them, get started, really learn what we have, because some of the stuff we're seeing, as they get the platform built, it doesn't become obvious until they start trying to saw cut those grooves in. They go under there with a scanner to try to find where the rebar is, and they lay it out. But none of it's perfect until they start cutting and see the sparks flying from the metal versus the concrete.
Sounds like a pretty exciting job.
In an ideal world, we would have completed that and then come back and say, here's exactly what we need, but because of the timing and the committee only meets once a month, we need to.
Yeah, I understand. I'm thinking more looking forward
Yeah.
of are there technologies that enable us to get a better view of what's there compared to what the as-built plans said they were. So to get accurate estimates up front, just that thought.
AI is probably no help on this one, right? That was a joke. But I'm all for moving this money so we can get this done. So is it okay for the chair to move? That we do that? Okay, I move that we approve the transfer of this money from somebody else's overage to where it needs to get the job done.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'd like to hear, Madam Mayor, what the cost turns out to be,
Sure.
what you discover, maybe at the next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're
Great.
bringing that back.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to new items, Marine Drive. Mr. Martin?
Yes, so we added this, we had a light agenda and we're gonna be going out to the neighborhood association to talk about Marine Drive in early August. August 7th. And we thought it would just be good for the bond committee to hear a little bit about it and what we're looking at and kind of what the status is. Because unique, Marine Drive is unique in many ways. It's actually the only project in the bond where we're building a new street. And there's a whole alignment that comes into play, and we were not funded to build the whole thing. We were funded to build a part of it. And we just thought it'd be good for the bond committee to hear a little bit about it before we go out and share it with the public. So
this is, I'm sorry, I just jumped in. This is, Ward 8. Or is it Ward 1?
It's
Because
Ward
it's,
1.
it's Ward 1, okay, but in West Salem.
Very impactful boarding.
Very impactful. So yes, 1 and 8.
So yeah, Aaron Edelman's our project manager, and he's here to kind of walk through some of the challenges we face. And I'll just quickly say, the street is going to be inside and outside of the city limits and inside and outside of the urban growth boundary. And so there's a lot of players involved, and because it's not the complete project, there's connections that are a little bit unique. And so anyway.
So just kind of a real quick walk through the project on the slides there. So it is a collector street, and it's a bit unique in the sense that it has a special cross section that's in the current TSP, and that's kind of what you can see. I know it's small on the screen there, but it's not a normal collector in terms of the width, how it looks. So some of the uniqueness about it: 1 lane in each direction, but there is no bike lanes because the bike lanes are up on a 12-foot multi-use path, which will run along the easterly side. And the piece that is funded with the bond will connect that multi-use path to Wallace Marine Park and essentially extends all the way up to Harrod. If you're not familiar, those names might not mean much, but there's a map on the next slide we can look at when we get there. So a little bit unique in that aspect. And then of course it includes all the other normal things that would come with a new roadway. Just to mention a few, obviously street lights, stormwater treatment. Those the last bullet at the bottom there. There's also a new 8-inch water line that's going in ahead of the roadway that will help loop together the system out in that area. And then some of the connector streets, and this will mean more when we look at the map, that will connect Marine Drive to Wallace, so they run parallel to each other. Is Harrod already exists today, but this project will finish some of the missing sidewalks along Harrod. Beckett Street, which will be a new collector, and 5th Avenue would be the connection to the southern. In the next slide. So we couldn't get this map to span onto one slide. It makes sense. We've broken it into 2. So this is the northern end of the project, and the piece kind of under the ribbon there that you can't see is a section that we've.
Oh, sorry. I am sorry. How do I do this? There we go.
So on the north end, we did jump out early and build a short section of that is now completed. It's adjacent to the Applegate Terrace apartments that are about to be finalized and opened.
Is that the grayish area?
Yes, we
Yeah,
kind
right
of
there.
superimposed their plan on top of it to kind of show what's been built out there. So that short 600 plus or minus feet of roadway is done and finished. And now we're moving on to the design of the rest of it. Harrod Street up there at the top, that's where we're adding the missing sidewalks along there. And then we will connect kind of in the middle there to River Valley, which is an existing roadway that's kind of stubbed for this future Marine Drive. Yeah, right in there. So that'll be a connection to existing roadway. So if you want to jump to the next slide, we can kind of look at the bottom half.
Oh,
I wonder, Aaron, before she jumps there, if you can kind of share the different colors between the purple and
Oh, yeah.
or the orange.
Right, so that's distinguishing what FEMA specifies as the floodway and the floodplain. So the pinkish on the far right is the floodway, and then the next peachish color, if you will, is the floodplain. And I guess we've shown those on our maps because it impacts what we can and can't do with our design. We have, has implications to permitting some of our work with Polk County to go through the land use piece. So it's a pretty big piece of the project.
Is Polk County above,
So you'll notice there's a yellow dashed line and a
Yes,
red dashed line. So
yes.
the yellow line is the city limits. So generally, everything to the left of that line is inside the city. And to the right, towards the river, there's a chunk that's outside of the city. And then the red line is the UGB, Deer Run Growth Boundary. So they don't follow each other.
why make it easy?
Exactly. So this is the extending from what we previously saw towards the south. So the Beckett Street connection will be a new connection to Wallace. And then the one to the bottom there is what's connecting to Fifth Avenue. And then, as Brian alluded, there's an additional piece of the alignment that continues to the south to Glen Creek. That is not a part of what's funded with this bond project, but the blue line there that you do see that kind of keeps running over, that's the multi-use path getting to Wallace Marine Park. Did a great job with what I say.
I would just share, if you could imagine where that street kind of has the 90-degree turn to get onto Fifth Street there at that last intersection. Right, go back to the main road.
I was doing so good.
Right there. So the phase 2 or the phase that is not funded would continue kind of along where that path is. And then it turns and borders Wallace Marine Park and goes all the way down to Glen Creek Road. That is the second phase that's not funded, and that
In the
one's been a
bond at
little.
all? In the bond, it's not funded.
It's not funded at all in the bond, and that one has been a little bit more controversial.
Because
I don't know the history of all of it. I know there's some housing authority properties that are built in that area. There's the Glen Creek or Glen Gibson watershed. So Glen Creek or Glen Gibson Creek runs kind of in that area. So there's concerns about, impacts to the creek, and then being right next to the park, people have concerns about that too. So
So it would go through the park, would it not?
be right on the edge of it. I think just.
I mean, if you could zoom in, I don't know if you can, there is not a whole lot of room there. To put
Tried.
a 60-foot wide road in there.
That's pretty good.
And you have the creek, with the direct impacts on that, and then right next to that are the ball fields, and I assume the park boundaries right there as well. So very, very tight.
Yeah, I believe it was all on the riverbank, from the top of the riverbank on the west side to the west, but it's like, the boundaries just.
Those are housing authority properties to the west, right? So that's the other, it's sort of part of the issue. It's
Right.
next to that.
Right.
Polk County Housing Authority, so not even.
Polk County. Okay, that is,
And I would just add too, this has been in the transportation plan since, I think, the late 90s, and the thought is it was a local access way to allow all the properties on the west there to develop and provide a way for them to get down to the business district in West Salem without having to get on Wallace Road. It was not originally meant to be a bypass of Wallace Road, although when the third bridge was proposed, it actually used this as a way to get back down and access Highway 22. So there was some overlap there.
So this is just a few recent snapshots of that portion of roadway on the north end that is finished and now open. You can kind of see on the one to the right, those new apartments, that is the Applegate Terrace apartment. So just kind of where we're at, the design efforts beyond what we just constructed are ongoing. We're still continuing to collect survey data, the environmental pieces, cultural resources, geotechnical investigation, all that effort up front to allow us to really drill into the design details, determining what the property acquisition needs are for the roadway to kind of cut through all those properties. We do have some of the property already purchased previous to the bond, but there's still a fair amount of needs. We're also coordinating with the franchise utility providers in the area. They're all very interested in studying facilities alongside the new roadway as well, so. Working through all that with, hopeful for construction to still be in 28 through 31. So fairly lengthy construction period there, but that also allows for the franchise folks to install their stuff in conjunction with this.
That's what he's referring to, all the gas, power, gas, electric, cable, any of those things that they have corridors that they can go ahead and install their facilities. So, in addition to our water line that we need to install out there.
So, I have a question.
A couple of questions. On the timing first, you said construction 28. Are you acquiring more right of way now? I mean, what's happening between?
Yes, we will need to acquire between now and
Yes, so the design is, what stage of design are you at now?
below 30. We're not at
You're not at 30%. So we'll have to get to a point to kind of get that further along and then start the right of way acquisition process.
Tagging on to that, though, I think that this would be a good time to point out that some of what we need or the property we're looking at is outside the city limits, outside the UGB. So there's planning actions with Polk County that will need to be done to approve the new roadway. And if there's property owners who don't want to cooperate with us, and we need to use eminent domain, which we know there's at least one right now that doesn't really want us on their property at all. There'll need to be some cooperation between us and Polk County to take the actions that we need to get the right of way that we need and do the investigation that we need for the design of the project. So.
Second question related to, go back to the map. You mentioned Beckett Street Northwest. So the first question was, did you say it was going to be a collector?
connector. So
Okay, maybe I misheard
I
that.
may have said it wrong.
So is constructing Beckett part of this project? And the timing on that is same as the rest of this?
Yes, it will all occur together.
When?
And we are, I'll share, we are able to go enough that it won't be as it's shown on that map. So there's a house just to the south of Beckett. Actually, it's not just the house, it's that entire parcel that has historical significance. So we're still trying to come into the Wallace connection the way ODOT had kind of always planned for it to be, but also kind of curve the roadway up and avoid that parcel to the best of our abilities. So we're trying to work through those challenges and the details of it.
First People? What's
Lord
the?
and Schreiber.
Lord and Schreiber. So they designed a garden.
They did a landscaping plan for the entire. Yeah. I believe the plan is actually housed in the house by Bush Planning.
We already own some of that property.
We own the entire park. The city owns the entire parcel.
Okay, so we own the parcel, but because of the historic,
Yeah,
it
with the
might have to
intent
be
of preserving
designed,
it, so.
might have to be designed differently. Yeah, I have a couple other questions. The 8-inch water line that you're talking about, is it because there's a 6-inch line out there now, or there's no water out there at all?
There's no water in that area. Everything is served from the Wallace or that side. So this will kind of loop around, connect that whole system, help provide better fire flow for future development and apartments that do exist out there today.
So right now, they're on, how are they getting? Do they have water now? I mean, they have water now, but it's.
Well,
it's
a lot
not
of
the-
these sites are still on wells.
They are on those.
But like some of the developments that you see that do exist, they do have water coming from the Wallace side.
And so this pipe will probably be then hooked up to the, with the 22, the changes the state's doing, ODOT's doing with that. Is that the water that's gonna be underneath
It
the
ultimately
bridge?
connects to that, yeah. There is another water crossing further to the north, I believe, that goes under the river.
Yes.
So, but this will loop all of it so that we have a loop system at better flow. And as Aaron pointed out,
Because you talked about the loop system before, so.
yeah, Some of the more rural properties, those folks generally are on wells, but where the properties have developed into apartments, they're on city water, so.
They are, okay.
So that's,
So the 8 inch is
This-
being designed to accommodate that future development.
So, because that's what I understand, that some places that are now getting more dense you're having to change out the current water dimension, which I think is generally been 6, and now you're moving to 8.
Eight is our minimum standard and has been for a while, but there's a lot of older areas of town that
Okay,
are
and
less than that.
yeah, even less than 6.
okay, because I think that was the project out south that
Yeah,
you and I talked about.
Yes.
And that's why, you know, the frustration, but at the same time.
Yeah. Yep.
Just trying to connect all the pieces.
Question.
Dr. Brown, Counselor Brown, go ahead. Commissioner.
Whatever title he needs at the time.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a couple questions. So you mentioned connecting with the residents. When do you plan to go knocking on doors to let them know?
We've already done a fair amount of outreach to a lot of the property owners because we've went and asked permission to go through their properties to collect this design data. So we've done a fair amount of outreach to the individuals we are impacting. We haven't done a bigger outreach effort to like the West Salem, but we are scheduled to go on the 7th to the West Salem Neighborhood Association.
Okay, good. And just a couple more questions. So, in the little box at the bottom of this, where it has legend in the bond project, and it mentions that this is in the FEMA's floodway. When this bond recently, when it went forward several years ago, did we get money from the feds or money from the state level?
No, we did not. The floodway is just a regulatory requirement that we have to meet. So like there's the floodway and the floodplain. Generally speaking, you got to stay out of the floodway. You can still develop in a floodplain, but there are certain requirements that go with it, permitting requirements that you have to meet. And, one of the more recent things council has heard is the state has pushed the endangered species requirements on those floodplain properties where you have to do additional analysis to make sure you're not going to harm any endangered species by developing it. And so that was one thing that Robin Dulke had a couple presentations of city council on. So it's there to highlight that that's just another area that requires special permitting. But the state, to my knowledge, has never really participated in, hey, here's some money for you.
Is willy-nilly giving us money.
Because that's part of an area that we have jurisdiction over.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Director. And one final question, and this is kind of like stemming from the previous presentation. Is there any anticipation that the funding for this will go over? Or are we in sync with meeting the deadline?
This is probably, I'll just say that without before they talk and they can talk more specifics. This is probably one of the tougher ones because of all these hurdles we have to get through. Not only with the floodplains, but Polk County and the land use issues. And because it's further out in the bond, there's more uncertainty. So the further out the project is the longer it's gonna take to get to construction, the more the market can change until we get there. And so that puts this at a higher risk than maybe, a project we're gonna build next year. So
Right. So
I know they're concerned about all the estimates.
Yeah, so with that having a question mark over it, do you or your team anticipate that you'll have to come back before the council, A, to give us an update, and then B, just let us know where we are, fiscally?
Yeah, I think there'll probably be several reports on this project before we get to construction, just because of all the things that are going on with it. And as we go through and manage the budget and get closer to construction and see what the estimates are, something we can give updates on going forward.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Obviously, we're always thinking about, money and how we can be more fiscally conservative. So just thank you for that. And I look forward to, seeing you and your team before council later on.
So I did want to add another question. Because of the franchise, the utility franchise configuration, we're talking about county having to approve the utilities getting installed, and then those companies would pay a franchise fee to Polk County, I'm assuming. And then also in areas where it's on state or city property, we'd have to work out the details with the franchise on the city part. So we get some income from that.
So counties don't operate the same way as cities with franchise fees, so it's a little bit different. We're able to collect franchise fees that counties can't, so it's setup's a little different. I can send you some information on that. I can have Ryan get it together.
Okay.
But it's a little bit different structure, but I think that just speaks to the complications of this project and
I
kind
think
of the
that's
in and out of jurisdictions. And I think prior to the project, we probably try to clean up as much as we can on the land use side to get it more in the UGB, more within the city limits.
So it'd be probably somewhat similar to hauling rates in the sense that we oversee it, make sure that
For where it's in the city limits, yes, we would oversee it. Where it's not, it would fall under the county jurisdiction,
they would follow.
either Polk or Marion. Actually, I'm not quite sure how unincorporated Polk County operates, but
So it does have a lot of conflicting things that you have to. Can we just get it back to the city?
If I can make it even more complicated, I mean, adding Marine Drive is going to, I think, create the opportunity for those properties to develop or prompt it. And I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to think about, not just how do we get the right of way and construct the road, but where are those property owners, and thinking about what their development opportunities are, to think about, what they're going to put in and how to do it. And then there's a bigger question, I think, on the in the floodplain is, what do we see there? Because again, just to the south is Wallace Spring Park. Are there other opportunities that the city ought to be looking at in terms of what's going to become of that land in the future? Maybe you're further along than that, but as a planner, that's the thing that jumps out to me.
There are at least one property that I know, former director Hernandez had purchased with stormwater funds, knowing that we have stormwater, storage issues out there. And I think there's maybe even some housing funds have been contributed to some property too for.
We use some ARPA funds to purchase some of this property. So in addition to other property owners, the city has a vested interest in making it developable and figuring out what we want to do with it also.
Excellent point, though. This is an area where growth can happen and wanted to grow the right way.
I'm just curious, is there, I don't understand the topography, like, is any of that hills, or is this all flat?
It's very up and down.
Okay.
That's part of the challenges we're seeing too, so. You can jump up the slide. So for example, kind of at the bottom, you see all those houses near River Valley. Where the roadway is supposed to go, there's a good 10-foot drop right in the middle of the road. It's pretty
Oh, wow. Doesn't look that way on there.
No, it doesn't. It's
Everything.
Well, thanks for that.
everything's
Good
going
question.
towards the river.
Like Wallace is kind of high.
Yeah.
Interesting. Any other thoughts or questions on that? No. Well,
Your job.
I was gonna say, having done many of home remodel projects, I know that it rarely comes out exactly as planned. And it's a great idea to have the rebar bent on site, I think, because you really don't know until you get in there. That's right. And side note about the bridge, I'm glad to know that it's going to last. I'll be dead and gone, and it will still be standing. So that's good news. Moving on, number 6, then management update on Civic Center.
That's me. Yeah. So I just wanted to come give you guys a brief update. I don't have any slides or fancy photos or anything just yet. hope to bring those like, pictures of construction as we get further along in the project, but we're just getting started, so nothing really noteworthy to share at this point. But I did want to say, for the benefit of the group, that all the moves are complete, so we're completely out of Civic. And I think it went as well as it could have gone, considering all the moving parts and pieces and trying to maintain services while we were doing that, especially with courts. And so we had a really great team and everyone worked really, really well together. So that was really good news. The contractor has taken over the building, and so it's almost entirely fenced. I think not completely fenced yet. We had some fence panels that needed to be replaced that were in bad shape. So they'll essentially have the entire area fenced off with the exception of they're gonna gate the access way that goes to the parking garage, and that'll be locked in the evenings. And then during the daytime, they'll probably keep it open for deliveries and contracts that are coming in. So that's that there. The demo is gonna start on the internal of the buildings will start August 11th. And so that's when we'll really start seeing activity happen. So right now, they've got an electrician in the building kind of taking wires apart, making sure that it's safe for the demo to occur. So that's happening right now. Our demo contractor will go and start doing the demo, which includes abatement. So addressing any of those items that testing positive during our testing procedure. There is asbestos similar to the similar type of contaminants that we had at the library, same era of construction. I did want to point out, any questions on that? Okay. I did want to point out that we did run into, I'll call it a slight hiccup, because when I first heard about it, it seemed really significant, but I think we've learned more about it and we're proceeding in a really good way. So I'm going to call it more of a hiccup now. But we wanted to make you guys aware of it, just so you know, in case it does happen to get, blow up as something more significant. But just so you were aware, so our building and safety staff, they do all our plan reviews, for structural design and other items. And in this case, because it's a seismic retrofit, we're having them do our seismic review, totally normal. Currently, the city doesn't have a structural engineer on staff. And so the last 2 or 3 years, they've been utilizing like a consultant to do that work. It's the MSC, local structural engineer in town. Backstory is MSC was used to, they used to be a city COR, a consultant of record. And so we hired them like early 2012, 13.
Yeah, the 2010s.
2010 era, to do a preliminary structural analysis of the building, both Civic and the library. And they came up with kind of their proposed design, and it was really for us to understand what the cost implications were going to be, so we could provide a proper estimate for the work. So fast forward to today, we have a different structural engineer doing the design. It's the same engineer that did the library design. And we're running the plans through building and safety, and they're being reviewed by MSC, which is the engineer that did the original design, or original proposed design. And so there's been a little bit of, I don't want to say disagreements, but more of like professional opinions differ slightly on how the work should be completed. And so MSC is asking to be removed from the project review due to conflict of interest. And so our building and safety crew is saying, okay, that's fine. So what this means is we're ready to get permits so we can start construction. This is a piece that's going to hold up getting our permits. We have our demo permit. So we're good to go starting our demo on August 11th. But any of the greater improvements are being held up because of this last review. So what we're doing is we're actually coordinating with the state building code division. They have state engineers, structural engineers that do this kind of design. They're very capable. They understand the code, obviously, as part of their job. And so we had a really productive meeting with them and KPFF, our structural engineer on the project this past Tuesday. And they're prepared to like expedite the review. They're saying they can do a review within 10 days and provide comments. The reason why I thought productive is because KPFF they're not doing any crazy new out-of-box design to improve the structure of the building. They're doing shear walls, they're doing micro piles and collector plates. It's very, very similar to what we did at the library. Again, same type of structure, same era of construction, 72. And so all the things that they're doing are kind of tried and true seismic retrofit methods. So I don't think there's any concern or fear that, you know, there's a lack of professionalism or anything like that on KPFF's part. They're very talented structural design firm. And so the state had opportunities to ask questions and clarifications at this last Tuesday meeting, and they seemed to understand the project. They had the geotech report, they had the previous design report that KPFF did, and we did our pre-design before the project was passed. So so all things are moving forward with that regard, but we just wanted to, like I said, until we get the permit, there's always an opportunity for an issue to come up, and so we just wanted to keep it around it. But it seems like we're moving in the right direction. So as a reminder, or I was even reminded this, you know, there's no code requirement for us to retrofit the building. This is completely voluntary. And so that changes how the code is interpreted a little bit. And we're still following, not to get too detailed, but there's an ASCE 41 code that structural engineers use to design their retrofit. And I think part of the issue is that code can be interpreted differently, depending on who's reading it, similar to like lawyers interpreting law. And so I think that was part of the hang up on this issue was MSC was interpreting some things differently, but ultimately the state will clarify and provide comments. So see, question at top.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
You can probably see the questions in my face. So thanks for the update, and I guess my question is, and I'm really going to look to Director Martin or our engineer to kind of speak to this also. So you described this as a hiccup, and you also used the word that they had a disagreement, and you said MSC is pulling out, right?
Yeah.
And KBFF, they're going to be the new structural design firm. Is that part correct?
Well, no, so KPFF is the design firm for the project that's working with our design build team. And so they were brought on, and from ground zero, they've been designing the seismic retrofit for the plans. The plans are then submitted to the city for review. And because the city doesn't have a structural engineer on staff, they have been using MSC as their structural review engineer on all things structural for plan review.
Well, I know you said you don't have a PowerPoint, but I'm a little bit interested to see what the disagreement was or is, because if there is a different interpretation from the firms about how this work needs to be done, I need someone to walk me through what that looks like. A, B, for Mr. Director Martin, is this common for this to happen?
I wouldn't say this is very common, no.
So KPFF, as part of the meeting that we had, they acknowledge that this is uncommon, but it's not rare. Like it's happened before, but it's not common. So in fact, they've been on other projects where the state building code has had to step in and review the plans for, I don't know the reasons for the past, but
I think it's common that when the final permits are getting issued, there's a rush to get to that finish line to get the permits issued. And there are things that pop up, and it could be, in this case, it's structural, it could be other land use issues or landscaping issues. There's different things that come up at that last push to get the permits issued. Structural, I don't think is one that typically comes up like this. The fact that it is, I mean, obviously, we're concerned and we're going down the right path to remedy it, and we're gonna make sure we do the right thing. It sounds like the risk is pretty low, but we plan to do an update, and when this came up, we wanted to make sure the committee was aware of what's going on, so.
Mm.
I guess
Well, go ahead.
I just want to add, I mean, I had the same question as you, Councilor Brown, was, you know, what's the core of the disagreement here? And I don't know that we've ever actually fully gotten that answer from MSC yet, so it's hard to tell if it's technical or just a difference of opinion because they had a different idea for the project way back when. But it's worth pointing out that they also recommended, hey, why don't you take this to the state building department to resolve it. And KPFF has been through that process before, so everybody was like, yeah, this is the best way to get to this, like, we'll get to the state experts and get to the solution that everybody agrees is correct.
Well, and I'm not going to use up all of our airtime, but I do have, you know, my mindset says there's a lot of reason to pause. I know we can't stop the project, but you know, I'm a little bit leery because there's a disagreement. And Mr. Engineer, I like how your thinking is, because if this hasn't happened before and now it's happening, is this going to change the cost of things as we move down the road?
And I think that's what we'll find out once we get the answer of what are the comments back from the state and what changes do we need to make to the plans, and then we'll be able to say, is there a cost impact or not? I'm hopeful that there won't be, but we'll find out.
Okay.
And we'll report back to the group for sure.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, I'm a visual learner, and so the fact that we could have something to see just to connect all the dots, I mean, that would help me to digest all of this. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Councilor Nishioka? Is it more of a liability risk that they're taking? I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it. If they're saying, as you said, that they may have thought of a different plan and now as they move forward, that if something went wrong, they're liable? I don't know. Or is it just they're not in agreement with the structural?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speculate on where they're coming from since I haven't talked to them directly, but yeah, I know that, you know, I worked with them way back when, because I was involved in the project and you know, they had their ideas about how they were gonna do things. I don't think they were that different from what we're doing, but we went through the library project and that was all very straightforward, and so this is kind of a surprise, but I'm confident it's gonna get worked out.
On that project, on the library project, we did have an in-house structural engineer do the review. So MSC wasn't involved on that one. So who's to say, had we been in the same situation, maybe they would have had a similar difference of opinion. But that's
And
speculation.
does this come down to an interpretation of code?
Yeah, that's my understanding is interpretation of code and like how that's implemented, right? So KPFF is doing shear walls and micropiles and collector plates. Collector plates are essentially really strong metal plates. They can, you know, various widths and sizes. And when the building shakes, the metal transfers the energy to the shear walls, and then then it's all in the strength of the shear walls. So again, they're interpreting the code and saying we think this is the best, it's cost effective, it provides the best strength and the best opportunity for a minimal impact to the building and maybe an opportunity to move back in. And so again, speculating, because I've talked to MSC, but I think they're probably reviewing the same code and saying, well, we would do it this way. And so I think that's potentially where there's a little bit of difference of opinion. So.
I just had my metal plates put on my house. Retrofit, yeah. It was a lot of noise.
Mine's just gonna fall down, but other than that, this kind of reminds me of the Ethics Commission actually, because it comes down to an interpretation of something. And I don't know what the personalities are like. Maybe there's a, you know, he's bugging me kind of thing going on, who knows? I feel myself wanting to ask, okay, whose interpretation is more expensive? Because I'd rather do it a little less expensive and be able to get it done. And yeah, interesting.
I guess it's not gonna be less expensive.
We're just paying for the building permit and then building and safety is operating as that independent agency that issues it. We wanna maintain their independence to issue building permits. So I think this is probably a really good compromise, is having the state building involved.
Yeah, so they're the ultimate then.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's an,
I'm happy to have the councilors ask all the difficult questions. I'm curious, what's the scope of review of the state when it's looking at this? Are they gonna hear the different opinions that they've added on interpretation? So that,
Well, it's a good question. I think they're reviewing it independent of anything MSC is reviewed and commented. There was this isn't the first review MSC has had. Like, we've had early conversations and other reviews prior to this like final push. And they had, a document of issues to address, questions, concerns, and those were all addressed back, months ago. So I think certainly, and that was a question that was asked at this last Tuesday meeting was, were the previous issues addressed? And the answer was yes. So I think we'll probably be providing, make sure, okay, these were the earlier questions it asked, this is how we addressed them. But I think from this point forward, they're solely looking at, the geotech report that we have, the plans that, the design that's in the 100% set of plans. And then reviewing that kind of in their own perspective. That's how I understood the meeting to go on Tuesday. And they'll provide comments if they have any, either suggestions or requirements, depending. And then we'll be able to address those and understand, is there cost implications? Is it, what are the issues? So, but KPFF is confident that if there are comments, they'll be minor, because again, this is tried and true method of construction and seismic retrofit. It's cost effective. There's not really any nuances that they're seeing that would, require something significantly to change.
anyone else? Counselor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So you just said about KPFF. We've worked with them before.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm going to be optimistic that they have a good track record of getting things done.
Yes, yeah, they were the structural designers for the library and the ops building.
Okay, I did hear you say that, but I need to hear it again. So thank you for that clarity. I appreciate it. I have no more questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm no lawyer, but it sounds more like irreconcilable difference. Conflict of interest. Conflict of interest sounds like something you went wrong. It seems like. Okay, anything else? No. Any continued business? No. Then there's nothing else. We're adjourned.
Early again.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, Dr. Brown.
Forgotten about a meeting.